Hello everyone, I'm Joe Ackourey, and welcome to the Fly of the Week. For this episode, episode 41, I'll be tying the Trico Spinner. It's a tiny mayfly that typically comes off around the second week of July and lasts till the first couple weeks of August. It's an early morning hatch. The trout respond very well to it. Typically, I like to tie it in size 18s to 24s. So, without further ado, let's get started. All right, guys, here we are at the vise tying the Trico Spinner, also known as the tiny white wing black. It's a tiny mayfly that typically comes off around the second week of July and lasts till, first week or so of August. It's an early morning hatch, and you'll see the duns on the water, and then shortly thereafter, you'll start to see the clouds of spinners. And when those spinners eventually fall, which could be as late as 10:30, 11 o'clock, you'll see the trout responding to them very well. So let's get started. It's important to, when you're selecting a hook, this is a standard dry fly hook, but it's got a good sized gap to it too. So you want to, these hooks are so small, and your hookup rate percentage is probably going to be way down, but the wider the gap of the hook, the better chances you have of hooking up. So let's get started. Let's cover the first half of the shank of the hook. This is a tiny hook, size 22, and we're zoomed in pretty tight on this fly on the vise. So like all our dry flies, we're going to wrap to the center of the shank of the hook, including the eye, and then we're going to rack back up half of that. That's where your wing is going to be placed. So now the wing material is you'll see my sparkle yarn on my website. Just select about a little section here. I prepared this section, and notice I have it exaggerated, much bigger than obviously the wing is going to be, but it's easier to handle when you're tying small flies like this. So we're going to figure eight this piece on, and it's approximately equal to about half the gap of the hook. And you know the drill here. When you're putting wings on, you just throw it diagonally across each other, figure eighting them. If it's in the back, you throw it to the front. If it's in the front, you throw it to the back, and diagonally. Do that a couple times, 6 or 7 times. Okay, now you got to lock that in by wrapping a couple wraps in the front of the wing, pull the wings forward, and wrap a couple in the back. That should lock in that figure eight nicely. And leave these long. Looks pretty wild, but it's just for handling purposes and making it easy for me to tie this fly. So now I'm going to wrap my thread back to the end of the shank of the hook, just before the bend. And I'm going to put the tails in. And again, this is a very, very easy fly to tie. You know, the concepts are very easy, but it's tiny, and it's, makes it a little bit more difficult. So we take our white feather, or hackle. We draw the fibers so that they're perpendicular to the stem of the hackle. And actually, I'm going to flip this around. I like this side better. I'm just going to take a tiny bit, maybe 5 or 6 of these fibers, and they line up nicely in the back, so you can bet they're going to be perfect in the front. So now, to make our tail on the spinner, we're going to measure the shank of the hook, including the eye. We're going to exaggerate it a little bit. Maybe do two shanks, including the eye. These tricos have some pretty long tails, and we're going to wrap that all the way up the shank of the hook and clip off the excess right behind the wing. Okay, now you're going to return your thread. I'm going to pick up the tails. I'm going to throw a couple wraps under the tails. Maybe one more. Just 2 wraps is more than enough, I guess. It's really coming out nice. Ooh, right, there we go. I like to fan them out a little bit and then put some pressure on the thread to lock it in. Here we go. Now, the body. So the body is going to be made out of my black fur blend, Beaver blend. Very tiny amounts. Again, this is a small hook, as you could see. So we're going to draw out the fibers of this fur blend very carefully. We're going to use our typical dubbing method. We're going to stretch this out and carefully and dub this down as small as you can make it. You don't want a bulky Trico spinner. I'm going to get these wings out of the way like we've done on previous. I'm just going to pull them forward and wrap them together so they stay together and stay out of our way. Work on this a little bit. Tiny dubbing noodle is what you're after. Tiny, very skinny. Slide that into position. And my blends, you can dub down to a 28 with no problem. Now, let's get a first wrap in front of the tails. Pick the tails up, throw one underneath. Fan out your tails. And begin building your skinny body. I can't stress that enough. Wrap that up. Shank of the hook. Undo those wings that we twisted together. Get it to the front. Maybe one wrap in the front. Then start your figure eight from the front to the back diagonally, from the back to the front diagonally. I'm going to repeat that one more time and keep that dubbing noodle skinny. From the back to the front, from the front to the back. Put a wrap to lock that in the back. Put a wrap to lock that in the front. I have some remaining fur blend here. I'm going to get rid of it. Okay. Pull my wings back. It slid off there a little bit. There we go. Doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, let me. There we go. There we have it. Okay, now our wing length is going to be equal to the shank of the hook, including the eye. So I use my scissors. And then I just pick the wings up, stand it up about approximate height to where I measured. There's my Trico. Spent wing spinner. Tie the knot. Try not to capture any of the parts of those wing fibers. Hold on to the hook when you're tying your knot, otherwise you'll bend the hook. Carefully tie your knot. Try not to capture the wing. It's tiny, guys. I got a couple fibers, but I could probably get rid of them. Clip off your excess. And there you have it. And just clean up the thing a little bit. Put a drop of head cement on there, and this fly is done. Ready for fishing, guys. So, the tiny white wing black or the Trico spinner. There you have it. Great pattern. Again, it comes off in the late part of the summer. First couple weeks of July, you'll see it. And lasts till about the first week or so of August. And trout love them. Well, thank you for joining me for this episode. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next. Tight lines, guys.